Greeting interwebs, it's JackitK. Welcome back to the Pokemon Go Fireside chat. I decided to take a break from the Shadow Pokemon retrospective I've been doing. It's a special series to me, so I don't want to rush it. But I don't want to leave you guys out and not have an editorial at least each month. So I decided to pull from current events and talk about something a little simple today. The announcement of Flower Eevee being put into the box. A very hot topic. And I know before you flame me for the title of this podcast, I understand your anger and frustration. To be fair, research breakthrough boxes have pretty much been a mess for a long period of time, though I'll admit it just got to the point where we kept having to deal with that mess for so long that I got tired of complaining about it. But this may be a good time to actually go back to it. First, I know you guys are dying to hear why I don't think it's such a bad thing to have Flower Eevee be the research breakthrough, when we've got so many more incredible things in the past, like legendary Pokemon. Well, I will admit, a lot of this is based on my own personal preference, and overall, it does seem like a strange move. But man, there was just not enough time to shiny hunt for Flower Eevee, and honestly, I'm still hunting for more Flower Eevees myself to try to get an Umbreon with a flower that's good for Great League. I've been trading whenever I hear someone still holding on to them, which considering how long ago that event was few and far between. And I gotta confess something, I did have a decent one that probably would have done the job just fine, but I didn't nickname it in a way that I could actually remember why I had it, and I evolved it into a Leafeon in the process. So that was a huge kick in the butt. And I'll admit, part of the reason why I'm so passionate about getting another Flower Eevee that would fill a similar niche to that one that I wanted to be the Umbreon. With that said, I'll agree a month is a bit too long for this sort of thing. But there's a reason that they've been doing these research breakthroughs for 2-month periods instead of just the one. And if you're a more casual player, you may be able to see this already. But to spell it out for the more hardcore player, not everyone plays Pokemon Go every single day. So, while 8 Flower Eevees seems like too many, especially when we've gotten such more valuable Pokemon to the mid of this game from a research breakthrough box, you gotta keep in mind you're only getting 4 a month if you're getting that research stamp every single day. And when type of research you can even redeem is completely out of your control and all dependent on the stops you're able to spin, it gets more and more in the air just how many research you can do in a month when you have less and less opportunities not only to play but to get the research you can complete, because some are going to take longer than others, like of hatch 5 eggs. If that's the only research that you got on that particular day, I'm sorry, unless you're like pumping all of your eggs into incubators and or a marathon runner, you're not going to complete that in a single day. That's going to take you at least 2 days. So while I think they could have gotten away with doing Flower Eevee for just 1 month, that would explain why they have the 2-month leniency period. But I think I've talked all I can about Flower Eevee itself. Well, it's been a few weeks, and you can probably tell that the first part of this podcast was recorded the day of, if not shortly before, Flower Crown Eevee Research Breakthrough officially became a thing. So overall, I'm a lot less excited about it than I was when we first found out about it, but I'm not redoing that section of the podcast because I think the points I make in there still stand. Just I don't feel as strongly towards those points as I did before. But with that said, I think this brings us to a good opportunity to talk about the quote-unquote real issue here, and that's with the format of research breakthroughs themselves. I'm personally not a huge fan of a lot of elements within them. In fact, I don't really feel like I've been as excited for a research breakthrough since they were the single Pokemon for a month at a time. And I've acknowledged that there's pros and cons to both the current system of a random grab bag between a bunch of legendaries and the older system of having one featured Pokemon every single month. And I think Flower Crown Eevee actually goes into that point. The biggest downside about featuring a single Pokemon in a research breakthrough is that if people aren't interested in that Pokemon, it kind of kills the whole research breakthrough. To be fair though, there is the catch that you can only get the new Sinnoh Stone, which will need to evolve your new Gen 5 Pokemon through the research breakthrough. And the fact that it's not guaranteed is probably going to keep people coming back every single week, but that's another story in of itself. I don't want to spend this whole podcast talking about that, but while I bring it up, I think I'll at least mention that, yeah, I'm personally not a huge fan of the fact that they're putting this evolution exclusive item, having the only way to get it is for research breakthrough, but not even have it guaranteed to be your research breakthrough reward. Because I can see some people getting caught in a loop of never getting their Unova Stone, and that's no good. I'm not going to be too worried about it yet, because I'm still holding my breath for the possibility that this will play out in a similar way that Sinnoh Stones did. Granted, when they first came out, they were guaranteed out like your first 2 research breakthroughs, but eventually they flopped it over to the whole randomized item reward. Personally, I think they should have done that with the Unova Stone, where like the first month, if not only like the first 2 weeks, your research breakthrough would guarantee you one Unova Stone, and by that point, people would at least have one to work with, and it would make the whole random element a bit less hurtful. As I was going to say though, I get the feeling that we'll eventually get some new feature into Pokemon Go, and they'll tie the Unova Stone a lot closer to that particular element. If you're diving into the data and follow the data mines, there's always things that kind of indicate that a new feature will come eventually. And I personally think it could be a good opportunity to introduce the Sinnoh Stone, the Unova Stone. That's all I'm going to say on that particular topic though. Back on the topic of the research breakthrough box, I'm going to start with comparing the pros and cons to the old system of one Pokemon and the new system of multiple Pokemon. I already started listing the cons of the single box. We do have a few opportunities to get special exclusive Pokemon for those, like the fact that they introduced Shedinja for that made your first research breakthrough pretty exciting. But the other side of that double-edged sword is it makes a few of the Shedinjas you get afterwards a bit less lackluster, especially considering Shedinja didn't translate into Pokemon Go too well. We can hope that someday in the future, when we have more mechanics introduced to the battling of Pokemon Go, especially with Shedinja currently being excluded from the PvP scene, someday Shedinja will get a chance in the spotlight again. But for now, it's not too exciting to get a Shedinja if you already have one, because as it stands, it's Pokedex filler and not much else. On the plus side, when it's a Pokemon that is useful to have multiple of, like a legendary Pokemon that does good in raids, let's just say Kyogre or the legendary birds before they got outclassed by other legendary Pokemon, those were good things to have a single one of in a research breakthrough for people who were already in the raid scene, because it allowed you to stock up on candies easily. You didn't have to worry about running, so you could pretty much throw peanut berries at it until you caught it. The downside is people who are purely into legendary Pokemon for collecting do run into a similar problem of you catch the first one and then you're done. To be fair though, with a legendary Pokemon that's useful for things besides the dex filler, you may want other Pokemon, but you at least gotta use for the additional Pokemon, even if it's just extra candy. And now for the pros and cons of the new, or at least was new until they brought back Flower Crown Eevee, system of having a bunch of Pokemon and randomly choosing between one, the game randomly choosing between one whenever you complete your research breakthrough. I think the biggest pro is diversity. It allows it to appeal to multiple different types of people. For example, if you're one of the people who weren't able to get a Reggie from a raid because you don't have a large enough community to raid, you'd be pretty excited about the opportunity to get a Reggie. However, people who do raid may not be as excited for that Reggie. If you have the opportunity to get Reggie and Groudon, for example, the people who want the Groudon at least have an opportunity to get that, while the people who need the Reggie aren't completely missing out just because they're doing what appeals to more people. And when you throw shiny Pokemon into the equation, it makes it a bit more interesting because, like, when you have multiple Pokemon to choose from and they can all be shiny, it makes the grab bag element a little more interesting because not only are you, even if you get a Pokemon that you already have and don't need more of, you at least got a chance at getting the shiny version of it. But that also leads me right to the con, and I think all players experience it, both the ones who have all the legendary Pokemon already and those trying to get that one legendary Pokemon that they're missing from their Pokedex. The RNG involved. On one hand, it keeps you from completing it too quickly. You could spend all month, or spend a couple weeks, no matter how hard you do the research breakthrough, because of that random element. But that also leads to a lot of frustration when you're looking for one particular Pokemon and keep getting the one that you don't want. And it's even more, I don't know if I would say funny, because I don't mean it in a positive way, but it's even more frustrating to see you struggling to get a certain Pokemon you want, but getting something that someone else needs, and vice versa. In theory, you could trade with them, but let's be honest, a lot of my interactions with Pokemon Go are with the internet. The people in my local communities already have the legendary Pokemon they need, so the people that I'm thinking of in particular that really get screwed over by the RNG of this game are people who live in real rural areas that I'm only really in contact with because I was friends with them long before Pokemon Go. And just seeing their frustration of not getting that one Pokemon they need from their Pokedex. Well, I got like 5 or 10 or 20. I guess the first thought that comes to my mind is an easy way to fix the solution is to open up trading, but that opens up another rabbit hole of discussion. And I really want to just keep this to the research breakthrough. My personal opinion is something that I've emphasized before, but I'll admit I've let a little loose on ever since they've done things to try to improve the grab bag system, including but not limited to making it so all the Pokemon you can get from the grab bag system at least have a chance to be shiny, so even if you get a Pokemon you already have, it's not as bad because you at least get a shot at the shiny of it. Picking more and more Pokemon that are viable for battling, and I'll admit those are the two things that come to mind. But they're two very good things, mind you. I don't want to demean it just because of that. However, I've mentioned it in a previous podcast, but since this is the podcast on the theme of Research Breakthrough, I want to emphasize it again. I still feel like the most ideal system for a Research Breakthrough is a system that gives us choice. Let us choose between that legendary Pokemon that's not too useful for battling, but you may be missing from your Pokedex if you haven't been able to do a raid, or that meta-relevant legendary Pokemon, or that Pokemon that you just need a shiny of. I feel the simple power of choice will relieve a lot of people of the frustrations that are involved with this game, at least for the Research Breakthrough. I understand that there are some cons with even this system, including the fact that if you give people choice, they can get what they need sooner, and therefore they'd be less interested in the Research Breakthrough once they got what they need. However, I can think of ways to at least reduce the impact of this con of all things. And to put it simply, let us work towards the research breakthrough we want. To be fair, it would require, I'm not sure if it would require a complete rework of the coding that makes up a research breakthrough, but it would at least be a major adjustment to that coding that makes up the research breakthrough. However, I do feel it would be worth it. And it would also require us to keep in mind that different players have access to different areas, so you have to be careful to choose something that's universal no matter where you are. Wouldn't be fair to tell someone to catch 5 ground types to increase their odds towards getting a Groudon out of the research breakthrough, for example, if you live nowhere near a desert biome. I think the simplest way to do this is pretty much reward people for doing multiple research breakthroughs within the time frame. Even if it's something as simple as, hey, you did research breakthrough 8, it's going to be completely random, but since you did a good job and did enough research breakthroughs to get research breakthrough A, which one of these choices would you like to have better odds at getting for research breakthrough B? And you continue on and on and on until you get the Pokemon you want from the research breakthrough. I think this would be a good system because you would still be able to keep the RNG elements that keep people coming back again and again, but you would be able to motivate players to continue playing and not get frustrated by the system, because the more they do research breakthroughs, the more likely they are to get what they want. However, I think if we're creative enough, we can make this even more fun as is. I kind of alluded to it before with my ground type to increase your odds of getting Groudon example, but I think if we had a system where the types of research you complete would influence what you got out of your grab bag, that would be the perfect system. For example, something like doing more ground theme research to increase your odds of getting a ground type Pokemon, water to get a water type Pokemon, and etc. The biggest con to this is we would have to be really careful with the system to not choose something that would be too hard for a player to do because they live in a certain area that doesn't have that right type of Pokemon. We could get around this by making it a little more abstract. For example, instead of basing it around different types of Pokemon, maybe we could base it around the activity you do. Like have Pokemon that are known for being friendly require you to do friend-based research in order to complete. Things like to send gifts to people or make a new friend. While if you want a more battle-oriented Pokemon, you would have to do things like battle in gyms, do raids, all the stuff that requires those systems too, like the charge moves and etc. If we have the research breakthrough Pokemon be based on the activities we do within the game, and somehow tie it to the Pokemon, for example, have activities based on a Pokemon's personality, I feel like it would really add an interesting element into Pokemon Go, while giving players who are looking for a particular Pokemon the means to get it, but not make it too simple. I don't want to run this editorial too long, but there's definitely a lot of creative ideas that we could do with this, and if you guys have any suggestions yourselves, I encourage you guys to share it too. You can either share it on YouTube for the comments if this goes up on there. You can contact me on Twitter through @JackitStuff. And more. All the ways to contact me should be in the show notes or video description depending on where you're watching this from. And while you're sharing your thoughts with me, if you want to see me go even deeper into this whole breakthrough idea, let me know as well. I'll take some ideas for this editorial series, and it'd be good to fluctuate the brains every now and then. But hopefully the next time we meet, I'll be ready to do my second part in my editorial relating to Shadow Pokemon. The last one I talked about Pokemon Coliseum and the origins of those games. So for the next one, I'm hoping to get more into Pokemon XD, especially because that game really took the battle mechanics of Shadow Pokemon and pumped it up to 11 in my opinion. And it'll probably take until a third part, but I also want to go over what Pokemon Go is doing with Shadow Pokemon, and more importantly, the things I think Niantic can learn from the Genius Serenity games, Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon XD, and implement those things into Pokemon Go, while still keeping the spirit of the game and not being busted, etc., etc. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, I encourage you to subscribe on your audio feed or YouTube, depending on where you are listening to this from, and tune in for the next one. If you want to see me do more content, I encourage you to check out the YouTube channel, because I do a variety of gaming things, both Pokemon Go and general gaming related. I think that's all I got to spiel about for now, though. Until we meet again, take care.